Hi guys, welcome to today's live stream. I am Libertman, forced to be alone but free to decide how to live it. Today we're breaking in a really big study that gives us some of the clearest real-world data on why men withdraw socially, why it's getting worse over time, and how men quietly slip into isolation without noticing it until it's too late, right? So, this is not a manosphere speculation. This is a national, longitudinal, government-funded psychological research, and the scale is huge. As I was saying in the first episode, I'm not going to address only studies based on the United States, but also in Europe and Russia and or Australia, that studies that are representative as well of other cultures, other nations, other societies, so that we can get a grasp of what is going on in other countries, and is also to give another perspective, to get another perspective on whether what you're going through or what is going through in Western countries for men is only a problem for of Western men, or men around the world are experiencing some similar situations. So that's why I have been selecting some studies that represent what is going on in other parts of the world, and studies conducted by different universities to avoid any bias, any ideological bias, or by presenting data that comes from different type of institutions. So in this case, the study is called 10 to Men, the Australian Longitudinal Study on Male Health by the author Shane Pirkis and other co-authors. And the study was conducted by the Australian Institute of Family Studies plus multiple Australian universities. If you want to check it out yourself, then they have their public portal that I am sharing in the description. Also, but before starting with the analysis, let me give you like a brief but clear overview of what this study is, what data contains, and why it matters so much for understanding this modern, quote-unquote, modern male loneliness. So 10 to Men is not a small survey. It's not 200 men answering questions online. The baseline included, the study included around 16,000 males aged between 10 to 55 years old across all regions of Australia, representing every socioeconomic layer. And they followed these men over years, collecting repeated data on mental health, social support, friendships and close relationships, household structure and living situation. Also, life transitions, health behaviors, and community involvement and belonging. This means we're looking at real life male trajectories, not only isolated snapshots. So now in today's live stream, we focus on the social connectedness report as well. That is a later publication from the same study, which specifically analyzes male loneliness, friendship networks, and perceived support. And this is where things get really interesting. So, as always, I will start by reading directly from the study in a way that is as friendly as possible. Meaning that I will pull full sentences from the abstract and parts of the studies from the study itself, and I will try to then make the interpretations of the data as simple with the language as simple and plain as possible. And I'm explaining again in case something discovers this live stream for the first time and still don't know what the dynamic and the structure of these live streams are. Okay, so I will begin reading some excerpt from the abstract, right? In the 2015 to 2016 wave, over 90% of adult Australian males lived with at least one other person. However, approximately 10% of men aged 45 and over lived alone. So already we see the pattern that most men are not totally isolated, but a meaningful minority are, and that minority expands dramatically with age. So let me read the next excerpt that says, around 1/4 of men reported low levels of self-perceived social support, and approximately 4% of men had no close friends or relatives. So let's pause a bit on that. This means that 1 out of every 4 men feels poorly supported, and 1 out of every 25 men has nobody, literally 0 close connections. That's extraordinary. It's a significant number. So let's continue a bit more. Men who reported higher depressive symptoms also reported lower levels of perceived social support over the same period. The association appeared bidirectional. Low support predicted later depressive symptoms, and depressive symptoms predicted lower perceived support. So this confirms what psychologists have long suspected, that isolation does not just come from depression, but isolation creates depression, and depression then deepens isolation. Now the next excerpt brings us more into physical health. It says, limited social connectedness was associated with poorer mental health, greater risk behaviors, reduced sleep quality, and poorer physical outcomes. This is incredibly important. Social withdrawal is not a preference. It is not just introversion. It is not men being stoic. It's a biopsychosocial risk factor, a risk that includes biological, psychological, and social dimension on the same level as smoking, obesity, or excessive drinking. And so finally, one last excerpt. It says, men with the lowest levels of social connectedness were disproportionately represented among those reporting psychological distress, heavy drinking, smoking, and poor overall health. So this is a profile of the invisible man. The man who drifts out of society, out of community, out of relationships, and silently deteriorating. And many times nobody notices until there is a crisis. So now let's take a step back and let's see what the study is really saying. In simple words, the study is saying that a significant minority of men are socially disconnected. They do not have strong friendships. They do not have emotional support. They are more likely to live alone. They are more likely to experience depression, and their physical health declines alongside their social life. So this is not men prefer isolation. It is not men don't need friends. It is not men are naturally solitary. The data suggests something different. Men become socially isolated because life pulls them into isolation, not because it's their nature. Jobs, relationships, divorces, relocations, financial pressure, social expectations, all of these play a role. But here's the key twist of the topic. Men often don't realize they are becoming socially isolated until it's too late. By the time they notice the withdrawal, the friend circle is already gone, the emotional reflex to share has weakened, and rebuilding feels overwhelming. So let's see why men withdraw more than women, according to the data. So as I was saying, when researchers compare men to women, not in this study but across psychological literature, there are some consistent patterns that we can see. And they are that women maintain friendships proactively, while men maintain them situationally. And women nurture emotional ties, while men rely on proximity, that is, work, shared tasks, and routines. Women stay connected after life transitions, while men tend to fall away. And also, in the case of women, they treat emotional expression as normal, while men treat it as risky. So, when life changes, men change with it, and their social work collapses. This Australian study is one of the clearest confirmation of that pattern. So, well, before I continue, if you're enjoying this analysis and finding value in this kind of psychology without BS content, now would be a perfect moment to hit the like button and like this live stream and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the algorithm to push this content to more men who need to listen to this, and especially those drifting silently into isolation without still understanding why. So your support is what builds this space, and I appreciate it deeply. So now let's see. Let's explore. Let's do the breakdown of the data, analyzing through the lens of the C4PC model of personality. As I was saying, now that we've gone through the findings, the next big question would be, what do these results actually mean for men? And why is male withdrawal rising? Not just in Australia, but worldwide. But these numbers of a longitudinal Australian study gives us a hint of what is going on. So let's break it down step by step. One of the most important insights from the 10 to Men dataset is how men interpret social pain differently than women. The report hints, and other studies confirm, that men treat social failure as a threat to identity, whereas women treat social failure as a challenge to repair. This difference explains so much, because when a man experiences betrayal, a breakup, humiliation, or a job loss, when a man experiences exclusion or repeated rejection, he doesn't immediately look for someone to talk to. He's instinctive reaction is, I won't let this happen again. So he withdraws, not because he likes solitude, but because solitude feels safer than vulnerability. That is the opposite that happens to women. That's the first domino. Then over months or years, the withdrawal becomes kind of a lifestyle and eventually a personality trait when that gets into consolidation phase. And by the time the man realizes this shift, the social muscle has already got atrophied, right? So why this study shows the withdrawal has become structural. Let's see how these Australian findings revealed that withdrawal is not a temporary anymore. The result has shown that it's cumulative. It builds up over time, like a snowball effect. But why? So a short answer would be that men lose social connections during life transitions. But society no longer provides structures that replace them. So let's think about it. For example, school are forced friendships. Workplaces now are remote. Marriage often is child-focused, not friendship-focused. Divorce cuts social networks in half. Relocation is very common nowadays, especially by changing jobs, going to another city to looking for another opportunities. The economic pressure of the market leaves man with no time for bonding. These smartphones empire or dominating empire in which we are living in implies a passive consumption instead of connection with people. So the pattern looks kind of like this. Man experiences a transition that in his life that leads to a loss of social proximity. This leads to isolation. Isolation leads to emotional shutdown, and this emotional shutdown makes it harder to reconnect later. So this is exactly the pattern the 10 to Men study tracks across different age groups. It's not a coincidence, it's a structural shift, and men have not adapted. So one of the clearest and most disturbing implication in this is that men do not notice their social decline until it is extreme. Women tend to detect early signs of loneliness, but men detect the late signs, detect these signs really late, such as numbness, apathy, irritability, physical decline, addictive behaviors, insomnia, problems with sleeping, emotional blunting, withdrawal from usual hobbies, and loss of romantic interest. Men often believe they are just fine until they collapse and and that collapse is already in progress. So this is why interventions often come too late for men. So even though this study is Australian, the pattern, these patterns that we've been mentioning appear also in Norway, in the UK, Japan, South Korea, the USA, Canada, China, everywhere. Every dataset reveals the same core mechanism, that men are losing rituals of community faster than they can replace them. And men rely on situational friendships, and those situations now are disappearing. This is why male loneliness increases with age, while female loneliness tends to stabilize. Not to get better, but to stabilize. So now let's shift into the C4PC framework. Each group experiences withdrawal differently, and this study helps us understand those differences more clearly. Let's start analyzing the internal rationals that are the quiet, analytical, independent, introverted thinkers type of men. These men withdraw voluntarily at first. They feel overstimulated by chaotic social environments on a daily basis, but over time, isolation becomes cognitively comfortable, emotionally neutral, and socially dangerous. The internal rationals often don't notice the decline until physical symptoms appear, such as disruptive sleep, anxious rumination, reduced energy, and loss of motivation. So the 10 to Men studies data shows that low perceived support strongly predicts mental distress in this group, even if they believe they don't need anyone. So which are their risk? Well, in this case, is emotional detachment turning into chronic apathy. In the case of the internal emotionals, who are the quiet, sensitive, reflective, deeply feeling introverts type of men, these men suffer the most from isolation. They crave connection but fear disappointment. The Australian study findings, particularly the bidirectional link between support and depression, match this group perfectly, because matching loneliness and with emotional pain with more withdrawal, and more withdrawal with deeper loneliness. They spiral faster and harder than the other types. So which are the risk for the internal emotionals? Well, for them is self-blame, falling into depressive loops, and also emotional shutdown. So for the external rationals, now I'm noticing that whenever I get to the final part of the live stream, whenever I have to analyze the 4 macro groups, I feel like an astrologist, because given the different signs of the horoscope, and so for the Gemini and the Cancers and the well, there is no other way of distributing this info, right? So therefore, I I summarize it 16 subtypes of personality into 4 macro groups to make it shorter, but even like this, I have to distribute the information in 4 groups. Okay, I go back. So in the case of external rationals, who are the driven, the task-focused, achievement-oriented extroverts type of men, these men withdraw when they feel socially incompetent or when life becomes too competitive. They often lose friendships because work becomes the center of life, or efficiency replaces intimacy, or being productive becomes more important than maintaining rituals. The 10 to Men dataset links low connectedness to poorer physical health, which hits this group particularly hard because their identity is tied to performance. So which is their risk? Well, their main risk is burnout, chronic stress, and functional isolation. To be surrounded by people, but internally feeling alone. And lastly, for the external emotionals, who are the outgoing, the expressive, and relational extroverts type of men, these men mask loneliness the best. They remain active socially, but with low depth kind of relationships. The study is finding that 4% of men have no close friends. Hides a truth that many men have many acquaintances, but zero emotional intimacy. So external emotionals may appear fine until a major life shock happens, such as a breakup, a job loss, betrayal, or this kind of a strong situation causes a sudden crash. So what's their risk? In the case of external emotional, is identity collapse when their social world collapses as well, or fragments. So let's see what the study suggests that we must do. The 10 to Men researchers conclude with a simple idea that social connections are a vital health asset for men. But men need realistic, male-appropriate ways to reconnect, not any way or general way. Men do not need group therapy or do not need forced vulnerability circles, or men do not need to talk about their feelings more, as many women are suggesting. But instead, men need a structured male bonding with projects, teams, missions, and shared tasks. Men need a ritualized connection, weekly meetups, predictable plans, and men also need small, safe steps to take. Talking about life indirectly through activities, not through a direct confession. And also, in the situation we are facing, now men need an identity rebuilding process, helping men regain the sense that they belong somewhere. So I think that's it for today, live stream. And so if you're watching this right now, here's the takeaway of this study. Loneliness is not a personal failure. It's a predictable outcome of modern male life. But it is reversible, and it starts with rebuilding one small connection at a time. So, in this live stream, we have seen how a massive Australian study confirms what so many men feel but cannot articulate. That male withdrawal is not weakness. It's a survival strategy that eventually becomes a trap. So I think, that's it for now. That is the main takeaway of this study. So if you found value in this, and please take 2 seconds to like the live stream and subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment if you want more episodes like this, or if you are from Australia and can confirm this is your case as well. Everyone will be thankful to your testimonial. So with your like and subscribe and your support is what allows me to keep creating this long form and research-based live streams for men who need clarity and not cliches or BS. So thank you so much for being here and joining this live stream. See you in the next one.